Hey there, Gothamites. Welcome to an episode of the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. With me, as always, is the psychologist to these superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City and beyond, Dr. Andrea Letamendi. Hello, Andrea.
Hi, Brian.
Everyone, we want to take an opportunity for a quick second as we start this episode to explain that our last episode, Mean Seasons, was actually recorded prior to a particular scandal that's gone on over the last couple of weeks in Hollywood and has shown a new spotlight on an ongoing problem that has been going on around the world for a long time, not just in Hollywood. And that is, of course, the Harvey Weinstein scandal. And because of the episode that we aired last week was recorded prior to that scandal, we may not have given a particular scene in last week's episode the credit that it was due, or the attention maybe that it was due.
I'm glad you're putting it that way, because normally we don't pull headlines and current events and dissect them or really deconstruct them and talk about them without a connection to either the episode or to Batman in general. And frankly, we normally would pick up on some of the dynamics related to gender and sexism and power. We've talked about some of those things before on the show. I'm actually surprised, whether this real life scandal was happening or not. I'm surprised that we didn't take some intentional time to mention this particular scene. One, because it is a little bit upsetting in and of itself without the current context. And then second, it's very adult.
Yeah.
And we often try to talk about some of the adult themes and some of the relational and mature topics that I believe most youngsters maybe wouldn't like really pick up on, like what's happening in it.
I want to go ahead and play that scene from last week, everyone. We don't necessarily do trigger warnings here, but let's go ahead and take a listen right here.
Don't worry about a thing. I'll get you the part. The director owes me big time. You'd be surprised the kind of pull I have in this town.
Irv Kleinman.
Hey, what is this? Costumes are down the hall.
I have a few questions for you.
Get lost! Can't you see I'm in a meeting?
Meeting's been canceled.
I'd run if I were you.
Okay. What?
This is exactly what Harvey Weinstein and others have been doing forever. It's a classic trope, and I wish I could say that it's a trope. It's a reality. We're learning more and more that it's a harsh reality of the casting couch, the luring an actress into your office or your apartment or whatever, and getting them to do things for you, to you, with you, in exchange for parts in movies and elevating their careers. And this is what all of these actresses are talking about right now. And every day someone else is brought out into a spotlight. And, I just wanted to play that and let you all know that we should have talked about this. and something else that troubles me a little bit, Drea, about that scene as we listen to it. Batgirl serves no purpose in the scene. Batman is the one who goes into the scene and interrogates the agent, the former agent. Mm-hmm. Batgirl's only purpose, as we heard, was to tell the young girl, who in this case was a victim, she should run. And she does it in a cocky, leaning against the doorway sort of manner. If that scene were written today, I like to think that Batgirl would go with her. And we don't necessarily have to see it, but if she escorts her out of the room, we could just imagine that there's a conversation taking place
I disagree with you on
Really?
this
Okay.
for a couple of reasons. One is that the one thing I do agree with you on is that we're not necessarily pointing out or criticizing the writers here.
Right.
I think this is revealing. I think this is meant to give illumination to this problem. And there is a Looney Tunes element to it. You know what I mean? The sense of slapsticky.
So you think
humorous.
her joke may have gotten this through?
That's an industry creative thing that I'm not raising that point, but I think you could be onto something there. What I'm getting at is, in general, this is meant to shed light on something pretty disturbing and pretty pervasive.
Yeah.
And I may be overthinking this, but my interpretation of this is how lighthearted and dismissive this is. This is a punchline.
Yeah.
This woman who's portrayed as a commodity, as an object, as somebody who is nameless and who is sent out of the room. This entire scene, I thought, was meant to show this disgusting thing. And even Batgirl, who we see, somebody who's empowered and who's a feminist and who is independent and who always stands up, or most of the time stands up to Batman, is almost like participating in this disgusting thing. So I'm saying participating, I'm acknowledging that the good that happens is that Batman interrupts this and there's an acknowledgement that what's happening is wrong and it's disrupted and it's stopped. And then there's the punchline, I think, is where this hits hard, right? The punchline is run away, never speak of this again. In order to stay safe, you have to leave. And in fact, there's this assumption or agreement that this is not to be spoken of again. And this is just one of many incidents like this.
You think that her saying you should run is an agreement to never speak about it again?
It's not so much that, it's the ending of this scene, the punchline, the idea of, you are powerless, you are in trouble. I, on the other hand, I'm a superhero. And so I'm above this. I have interrupted it. I've stopped it. And like you said, we would like to see Batgirl support her and assist her in getting help and reporting this and bringing this to justice. And we don't get to see that. But I think this is why it's a powerful scene. Yeah. It gets to stay in, and I think you're right. It gets to stay in because there's a punchline, because it's humorous. But what we are left with is we just saw this traumatic thing. And it's the women who are paralyzed by this. Even Batgirl, I would say, has this, the only option for her is to be a part of the punchline and to try to get above this with her own, what I would consider like diminished sense of power compared to the men in this scene. And the reason I'm saying I disagree with you on this is that it would be a fantasy if we saw it differently. This, I think, is how it would happen with these characters. So if I see what you're saying, like Batgirl is supposed to be heroic and therefore, I don't know, what would you have liked her to do?
escort her out and have the conversation. Even if we don't see the conversation, have it implied. I would like to infer from the scene that she was supportive, and instead she wasn't. She was cocky.
Yeah.
She was leaning up against the door frame and told her she should run. And I don't know that girl ever got the help. I don't know if that girl ever...
I don't think she did.
I don't know if that girl ever told her story to anyone who ever listened to her again and or who believed her. And that's what everyone says these superheroes are for. Mm-hmm. She wasn't there to watch Batman threaten this agent. She wasn't there to intimidate the agent, because she wasn't going to do any better a job at intimidating an agent than Batman. And Batman put him up against a wall and made it very clear that the meeting was over, even said it, and scared him into telling him more. Batgirl really wasn't there for any other purpose except to say that one line. And I wish she had walked out with the girl to show her support. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying she had to go because the two of them were both women and, commiserate together, but to show the heroic, like, I'm here to support you. And I like to think that anyone who walked in on a situation like that would escort someone out and say, are you okay? Do you need help? Do you need me to take you somewhere? Do you need, and they didn't. And I don't,
And I agree with you in the sense that, especially when it comes to sexual assault and harassment, that we should do our best to follow those efforts. And I think that we can sit here and say that's what Batgirl would have done. But the tone of that, or maybe the idea of that, makes me feel like we're not acknowledging other heavy factors in this dynamic. Whatever Batgirl is holding on to, whatever influences have her dragged down, maybe the humor and the cockiness and the "this will never happen to me" attitude, which I think is present. There's a sense of, I'm better than this kind of thing, or I'm above this, or I'm too independent to let this kind of, too smart for this to happen to me. I think that is very revealing, and it's honest. And, I can tell you that there are a number of times looking back, I wish I had acted differently. I wish I'd been more supportive. And even I wish I would have paid more attention to listen and truly make those extra efforts to make sure that somebody felt heard and had the option to come, go public or to say something or to report something. And the truth is that there are so many difficult, heavy influences, especially on women. And, I have to point out, sorry, but this is why I'm saying I disagree with you. I have to point out that we're focusing on the two women and saying they should have done this, they should have done that. Why aren't, we're sort of criticizing and deconstructing their behavior. And there are two dudes here who we're not even talking about. And they should be the ones who we're targeting as far as how should they have behaved differently, or what do they need to do to correct this?
I don't disagree with you, but I feel like Batman does everything that I think you should do. He actually puts this man up against a wall. He raises him off the ground, and he makes it clear, you're not doing this. You're not doing this today.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens in the future, but he makes it very clear that this meeting is over. And you need to understand that. And it's what I want to see everyone do in a situation like that. So I don't know that Batman deserves to have a finger pointed at him in
That's
sort
fair.
of an accusatory manner. But yes, you're absolutely right. There are a number of people in that room that could do it.
Yeah. And I think this scene, that's why just alone, this scene is so powerful. I think there's so much about this scene. And again, notwithstanding the stuff that's going on in the news, I think that we would still be addressing some of these issues.
Yeah. If you are someone who has seen problems like this in person or through a friend, we hear you, we believe you, and we're standing right beside you. I don't want to say that I believe in fate, but it is an interesting coincidence that the events happened basically the week that we covered this episode. So.
Okay, so I think that this is what this show is about for me. That it's that, yes, there are these quirky characters with all of these, somewhat adventurous types of journeys, and some of them are more interesting than others. I mean, today's episode is one of those that just it's not heavy in terms of psychology. So we have these characters that go through these things, and you have in most episodes these moments of hard realism, these moments of, can we just sneak in? It's not even sneaking in. It's can we lift the mirror a little bit to what's going on? So we're talking about Hollywood. So the animated series puts the mirror up to the themes and the topics and addresses the climate of the time. And so what I will agree with you on this is 20 years later, this is still relevant.
Well, and I don't think that it's an accident that they waited until an episode about ageism and about youth and beauty in Hollywood to show a scene like that. Like, I think it was a deliberate act to show a scene like that. I think they knew what they were doing, and I don't disagree with you. I think that it was on purpose and that it was meant to shine a light on it. As best as an animated series that's, again, ostensibly for kids can possibly do.
Can you even imagine this kind of scene in, Teen Titans or...
No. No.
It would never work out in the same way.
No.
It's just for its time and within its time, it's pretty powerful, and it's very essential.
Yeah.
To have those moments and to have those political, social, and psychological elements. And every time we do the show, why are we doing this? Oh, right. This is why.
Right.
This is why we chose this show.
Well, let's continue from this point. Let's continue that validation by moving forward to an episode that I feel is chock full of psychology.
No.
Yeah, I got nothing. I have no idea what you're going to talk about in this episode.
We went from an episode that was about body dysmorphia and ageism and gender and sexism and assault and power, and now we are going to talk about big animals.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a palate cleanser. Maybe we have given you so much. The next week we just basically have to give you big animals. Now, I will say that is production order. This isn't actually the episode that aired after that episode. So it is not necessarily the palate cleanser that maybe we would have wanted. The next aired episode would have been The Demon Within, which we've not yet covered. So, but we are here to talk about Critters. Not the movie.
I was just going to say that's Kevin Bacon.
Man,
no,
that's Tremors.
Really?
Yeah. I would talk about Critters. Maybe this episode should be. Maybe we should leave the studio right now, go watch Critters, and then come back and talk about that movie.
We should watch Tremors.
Yeah, we can talk about that too. We can basically talk about anything but this episode. I'm dying to know what you came up with. This episode was... I don't even know that it's necessary to go through scene by scene.
Just tell us the characters.
Farmer Brown. I mean, that's really all you have to know. There's a character named Farmer Brown, and that's the extent of the depth. But Farmer Brown is a microbiologist. He is at a agricultural fair or some sort of assembly convention where he is trying to sell the industry on his gigantic animals that have been hopped up on growth hormone or whatever serum he's giving them. He has mutated them to the point that they don't even look like cows anymore. They don't look like bulls. They don't look like chickens or birds. They look like hell beasts. They are all hell beasts, and we're expected to, I don't know, eat them and do like whatever you do with animals. He is expecting these gigantic beasts to be the next big thing in science, and one escapes during the convention, wrecks the place. Bruce manages to get it to knock itself out. And from that point forward, he has a failed business, and he decides to unleash these animals. Some even going so far as like they're basically vultures / pterodactyl looking. They are so heinous looking vultures that they've basically become pterodactyls.
Right. Like all the animals are some kind of hybrid or super version, horrific version of their original form. They're all engineered to be pretty horrific.
If Mike Mignola had designed all of these creatures and put them in a Hellboy comic, they would all fit.
I had actually written down Tim Burton.
No, they're not nearly sleek enough to be Tim Burton. These were all very angular cut sort of
I thought
characters.
that the chickens,
maybe the chickens.
vulture chicken things were sort of. But I should mention, just for the purposes of understanding some of his motives, that he is court ordered to move all of his animals outside of Gotham City because of the damage, the property damage, the risk to people, the threat.
Right. So
he was given a court order, and the judge called his creations monsters, and he was very insulted.
And they were.
By that. Well, they literally, yes. At that time, we didn't see the extent of his science.
Yeah.
But he then took all his animals, and we should mention he has this daughter, Emmy Lou, who is by his side and essentially assisting him in some of these operations. She, along with the animals, are on his farm, which is essentially a lab that is at its surface presenting itself like a farm, and he himself and Emmy Lou are dressed like farmers, like a, I guess, stereotypical version of farmers, and yet they have this giant lab where they engineer and essentially raise these mutant animals.
And let me just say that this is one of the only episodes that I remember, at least in a non-accusatory sort of, Batman doesn't care how he drives. Batman doesn't care how he does whatever. Batman's willing to kill living creatures in this episode. I mean, he's trying to use a pesticide on giant insects. Now, why Farmer Brown would decide to inject a praying mantis with growth hormone, I have no idea. I don't know what purpose that would have.
That's actually one of the problems with this episode, is that you don't really get a good sense of his rationale.
Yeah.
He's not
other mad scientists are presented better in this series than he is.
It's like, it's lazy. He's unleashing all these monsters, but we don't understand. We don't know enough about his own psychology. He's not, pardon this phrasing, but he's not mad enough for us to simply dismiss it as so erratic and unpredictable and just maniacal. He's a farmer dude and was mad because he was told he couldn't engineer his animals anymore in Gotham City.
Yeah.
It's unclear. Like, what does he really want? He ends up asking for money, which is
$50 million.
It's not in alignment with what his science was. I thought he was trying to, get folks to adopt this new way of...
Right, but once his career went belly up, $50 million may have been what he considered his financial losses.
Sure.
To be. Like, he may have been like, I was going to be the next big thing, and now I'm not. Now I am completely, like, not only is my company, my farm belly up, but the court has ordered that I remove any large animal from Gotham City. I want $50 million. Like, he may consider that as damages. Now, what's interesting is some of the creatures, the insects, for instance, Batman takes the head of a praying mantis back to his lab and analyzes it, actually determines that at some point in time, Farmer Brown has determined that these creatures need to be on a timer, essentially. Like, they are genetically built.
They're like robots.
To fall apart at some point.
And the goat later talks like a robot. So are they also cybernetic? It's weird. There are other episodes that I appreciated, like with Hal 2000. Hardak.
Yeah.
With Hardak, the motives are very clear. It was somewhat simple, but it was also understandable, and it had a lot of elements of different sci-fi themes. It was entertaining, and we were sympathetic, absolutely sympathetic. And what is I keep thinking of like the movie version of the episodes. So for Tiger, did I get that one right?
You did.
For Tiger, which is based off of that movie,
like Dr. Moreau.
Yeah,
it was a book. It was a book.
Right. Also based off of the movie
100 years
with
earlier.
Val Kilmer, who played Batman.
There have actually been several versions. That was, yes. But yes, you can go with that one.
I'm just trying to make it all relate. With that episode, you have a similar premise. There are these wild animals who are created, and all these hybrids are made, and there's a very serious and
there's a reason he wants to be God.
Right. No, and it's clear, but there's also a serious tone to it, and it's handled again in a way that you feel sympathy for some of the characters involved.
Yes.
In this episode, because so little is given to you about their history and this particular scientist's motives, it falls flat. And what's even worse is that Emmy Lou, his daughter, is alongside him for the majority of the episode, and I kept waiting for her to demonstrate something different. Like maybe she'll choose a different path than he did, or maybe her head will come off and we'll realize, oh my God, she's a
praying mantis.
Or she's a robot.
Right.
So it was so thin. It was just so inconsequential. There was nothing there, no substance.
Well, okay, so then let me ask you, because I've got to know. And by the way, everyone, that's literally the episode.
That's it.
That's everything.
Well, they go to prison.
Big animals. They want $50 million. They don't get it. They go to prison. Big animals, maybe, I'm assuming, just go to slaughter. Drea, then I need to know, what did you glean from this episode? Are we talking like a person who is scorned and decides to hold something hostage, or like is it like what have you got for us?
Well, I should add that one of the menacing things that he does, that Farmer Brown does at the end, is to set up this rocket with all of these bug pods.
Yeah.
I feel like I may have fallen asleep, or I missed where the bug rocket was, and why did we switch to a rocket? This is what I'm talking about. He wants the money, and then you fall asleep and wake up and realize, no, he's going to destroy Gotham City with this giant bug rocket.
Well, yeah, he's decided that he wants the $50 million, but
if he doesn't
get the $50 million, he's going to destroy Gotham City.
Okay.
They trick him, and the armored truck that they drive onto the boat doesn't actually have the $50 million, but they don't succeed in capturing Farmer Brown and his daughter. So Farmer Brown decides to launch a rocket that has a bunch of pods that have giant mantis eggs, or basically the makings of the giant mantises. And so the idea is that the giant mantises are going to destroy Gotham City.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for summarizing that.
In the new Batman Adventures, really the plot of every episode is someone's going to destroy all of Gotham City.
Yes, and so that was, I mean, one could argue that, sure, it's consistent with other episodes, but we've seen it so many times before. And it just, at that point, you don't really, again, because you have little sympathy or empathy for the two villains, it really doesn't matter.
None.
What the
man's name is Enoch Brown. I'm out. And let me just say, according to you listeners, now I haven't seen it. I'm not a big Superman fan, so I've never seen a single episode of the Superman Adventures. But let me tell you, this seems like the kind of thing that Superman should be involved with. Giant creatures terrorizing Gotham City. You would think maybe Superman would show up and be like, nah, Bruce, I got this.
Your usual argument would be like, this is outside of Batman's scope at this point.
Yeah, except I guess we find out at the end it's not.
It's not.
We don't know. We don't know where the animals went. All we know is that Enoch and his daughter are taken to prison, but we don't know where any of those creatures ended up.
I was fascinated with Emmy Lou. And like I said, I was hoping that she would pivot the story and get us fascinated, or at least pique our interest about her relationship with her father. How did she end up in this situation where she's assisting her father in threatening others in murder, in, I guess, engineering these animals? Like, what's
business
in it for her? There's this persona that she puts out there that is like the...
Gosh, gee, will
yeah.
She's Ellie Mae. She's literally... He is Jed Clampett. I mean, even Harvey Bullock makes a comment about him being Jed Clampett, and she is literally Ellie Mae. So, I mean, down to the plaid shirt that comes up above her shorts, the midriff showing, and like she's Ellie Mae. So,
and yet she's not really that interesting. She's just kind of there, and I think that is disappointing. She's this accessory. What did interest me was her disclosure of using steroids, whether she willingly takes steroids or her father injects her, just like the animals. It's during the scene where Batgirl is fighting her and she attacks her and bounces off Emmy Lou's stomach, basically. And actually, that's the part where I was excited, because I thought, this is where we'll discover that Emmy Lou is an android.
Yeah.
And no, she makes a comment about
beef steroids.
If Emmy Lou is habitually taking steroids, again, we're not sure how this is administered, whether it's willingly or whether it's forced on her like the animals, that she could be experiencing some kind of steroid-induced mood problems, like maybe even steroid-induced psychoticism, where she's developed this delusion that her and her father's engineered animals are the future and are for the betterment of society, and she's willing to do anything she can to pursue this particular endeavor.
Right.
But other than, and I pulled a few articles just to kind of check in on some of the side effects of not just steroids, but also human growth hormone, because I realize I think she says steroids, but it's likely that
Well, yeah, that's the weird thing. So steroids, basically, the way the steroids work, anabolic steroids specifically, the way that they work is that they build muscle mass and burn fat. But the only way that they do that is by heaps and heaps of testosterone. There is nothing about this woman that looks like she has been given heaps and heaps of testosterone. I mean, she's about as Daisy Dukes, Ellie Mae.
She's kind of muscled out, though, isn't she?
She's pretty fit and lean. Like she is very ladylike. So there's not a whole lot of reason to believe that she's been given specifically steroids. Now, HGH, many of them, HGH would kind of do a lot of the same stuff, but either way, she's certainly being given something that, I guess causes her to be a brick wall when attacked by a Batgirl.
And the distinction, let me know if this is correct. The distinction is that steroids are man-made chemicals, and HGH is not fabricated.
No, it can be still synthetic, but the difference is like HGH basically it promotes sort of the repair of muscle tissue and the growth and that comes from that. You know, every time you lift weights, you rip your muscles, and this promotes faster, stronger repair of that muscle and a bigger, as a result. And it doesn't work the same way that an anabolic steroid would. But so she's not really getting bigger either. Like I don't know what she's being given, whatever it is. But I don't know what these animals are being given. So
maybe what we could conclude is that whatever is making the animals aggressive and I don't know, I want to say like outside of the norm of their what their typical behavior would be. Maybe she's experiencing something similar where she too is willing to participate in these unethical acts, and is, the human version of this is that she's fighting off Batgirl with a willingness to harm her. So there could be some kind of connection between that. But other than that, it's not necessarily clear, and you're not really invested in that character. So she goes to Blackgate or Stonegate.
So Treya, as I ask this question, what'd you think of this episode?
There are no questions. What did I think?
What'd you think of this episode?
I don't like to say this about any show, but I just think that this didn't really contribute to the universe, the bigger picture.
It took 111 episodes of our podcast really to come up with something that's just like, nah, we got nothing. I mean, we did a little bit, talked about some steroids, talked about some HGH and the people who use them, but and I will say, don't let this get you down, because I did a little research online. This is probably one of the least liked episodes by fans.
I will say that usually the episodes that I like are the ones that draw something out of Batman. They reveal the psychology of Batman. So in the last episode, it was about Calendar Girl and her issue with aging. He then deals with his own issues around aging. This particular episode.
No, let's talk about the fact that he there's a difference between animals and human beings. He is clearly willing to kill them.
But he doesn't see them as animals anymore. He sees them as these engineered mutants. They're no longer.
Are you suggesting that living creatures
No.
engineered or not? Because Batman, he takes the head of the mantis over to the lab, but then he runs the one bird into like a chemical thing. It like bites in we don't know that it
So
died,
maybe-
but we sort of get the impression that it died, and he just sort of smirks and walks away.
I keep wanting to drink out of this candle. Maybe
Don't do that.
No. Maybe the psychology with this, related to Batman at least, is that the horrors that are come about, the outcome of these experiments also bring out the mutant behavior in Batman, or better said, the horrific behavior, the inhuman behavior out of Batman, because he's not exactly his usual self.
I'll go with that.
Okay, I'm really grasping at straws.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Drea, get ready, because next week,
Tremors.
everyone, well, here's the thing. So this episode is our first of, I kid you not, 3 back-to-back episodes involving animals. It's the trilogy of animals. But I think you're going to like next week's episode a little bit better. I've got a feeling.
What you got?
Well, it's going to involve Catwoman. So I think you're going to like this episode. Until then, why don't you tell the folks where they can find you online?
I'm at Arkham Asylum Doc on Twitter, on Instagram, Arkham Asylum Doc. Website is underthemaskonline.com.
You can find me. I am at bward028. You can find me on Instagram. I am b_ward028. And you can email us both. We are arkhamsessions@gmail.com. Come follow us on Twitter at Arkham Sessions. And you can follow our family over at Fanbase Press. They are at fanbase_press. Go check out their website. Go check out their all the different comics they've got coming up, all the different signings, all the different events. They are absolutely awesome. Some of the best people that we could possibly know. And we're happy that we are part of Fanbase Press. So go check them out. Until next week, I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Andrea Letamendi.
Together we are
The Arkham Sessions.
Okie dokie.